Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now I'm out here on this freezing cold day, but at the same time out here to greatly enjoy myself. I'm out here at what I call Bushcraft Wonderland. This is a location where for the past few weeks I've been getting started building a woodscraft and bushcraft shelter, pretty much so I can get out here and do some filming, enjoy some time in the good outdoors, and use some awesome tools. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do here today. So here I have the Tuff Gear Wilderness Warrior. Now this is a blade that I have been using at length at this point, but I'm gonna continue using it today for some of these bushcraft and shelter build tasks. And here I have the Siddha Khukuri, which I always need sort of a larger blade and also a smaller camp knife to do my chores. Now I have not yet used this Siddha Khukuri at all, but I thought it would be a great choice for some of the tasks that I'm going to be doing today. Now the first thing for me is getting a little stick and twig fire going so I can kind of warm up a little bit, and it's part of my plan for the shelter build today, and I think using these tools is going to be a great way to get things started. So with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you, and if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. And so here, getting to some good hard field use using the Siddha Khukuri. Now the Tuff Gear Siddha Khukuri is designed by Timothy McLaughlin and built by Tuff Gear. Now Timothy McLaughlin is the owner and operator of Dragonfly Kukri and Knives. And Dragonfly Kukri and Knives makes some beautiful products. Handmade knives and handmade kukris, absolutely amazing. And the Siddha Khukuri here being a production model by Tuff Gear. This particular knife here is a kukri design, a full tang construction, and the overall length is 16.9 inches with an 11.3 inch blade length and the cutting edge at 10.7 inches. This knife here has good overall chopping power. Now this is just short of 1/4 of an inch thick at 0.23 inches in Tuff Gear's SK85 with a Rockwell hardness of 56 to 58. The blade shape is a saber grind with a convex cutting edge. The overall weight of the knife at 23 ounces, and it does come with a nice quality Kydex sheath. Here you can see using the kukri in a number of different ways. Now, for me personally, I'm not really too much of a kukri type of guy, but at this point I have committed to using it for all of my camp tasks, so it's taking me a little bit to warm up to it and to gain the advantage that really you do get with a kukri. So playing with it with a few different grips, trying some different styles and techniques, and you'll see that over time, I actually do significantly improve. I have to say the Siddha Khukuri has wonderful balance overall and does feel great in my hands. It's doing a nice job with many different tasks, so from the chopping tasks all the way to some basic slicing, and here using the knife with two hands as sort of a plane. I'm using it to plane down the handles on my baton so it will fit my hands better for long-term use, and the Siddha Khukuri doing a wonderful job for this particular application. I do find that overall using different portions of the blade do have different advantages, and that's something that for me I just did need to come to terms with. Now again, I'm not much of a kukri guy. This is actually my very first time using a kukri at length. I've held them, I've tried some basic tasks, but relying on it here at length, this is going to be a true test for me. And of course, using it in freezing conditions, that's going to be a great test for the heat treat and quality of the SK85 steel. Now overall, fitting my hands wonderfully and doing a real nice job. I have to say, for the first time getting this kukri in my hands, I am quite pleased. A lot of nice dry curls coming off of this. So I am going to take advantage of this while it's here
and gather this up, because it's kind of like already doing some of the work I'm gonna need as I continue to process down for my fire. So let's keep this stuff dry while I get the chance. I think that's gonna help me in the long run. Why do the work twice? So as I'm shaping down this handle, just to thin it out so I can work at length without fatiguing, the Siddha Khukuri is doing a nice job. You can see, I'm using this sort of push technique up in the upper portion of the recurve, and full grip, nice size handle, good palm swell, feels really good in my hands, and especially with the gloves. And you can see here, just doing a nice job. And this is oak, so I wanted to use a good hard wood so my baton would last at least a little while, and especially since I'm putting some good time into shaping out the handle. And it's doing a nice job. It's just, planing down and through the wood, doing a good job getting overall pretty nice bite here, a good amount of blade depth. So as I'm grabbing onto the blade here, no worries that I'd get close to the edge, and it feels good and controlled. So I've been going at it here for a little bit, not a ton of work. It's actually pretty easy and fairly straightforward. And as I mentioned, while I'm at it, I'm getting myself some nice curls. So at this point, I'm getting close on my, I'd call it my rough shape here. And at this point, let's just fine tune this a little bit. And so now getting into this with the Wilderness Warrior. The Wilderness Warrior is a blade that I used extensively in week 2 of my shelter build. I got a lot of work done with this knife, and it did perform very well. So overall, general camp tasks with this, it does a nice job.
And now the Wilderness Warrior, designed by Shannon Doe Hamilton. Shannon Doe Hamilton is a Canadian hobbyist, knife maker, and designer, and he teamed up with Tuff Gear for the Wilderness Warrior. The Wilderness Warrior being a 12.2 inch overall length with a 6.9 blade length. The total cutting edge at 6.1 inches and the blade thickness of 0.196 SK85 with a Rockwell hardness of 56 to 58. This particular knife having a very high saber grind with a convex cutting edge. With 3D machined OD green G10 handle scales and weighing in at a total of 15.3 ounces. Here you'll see me using the Wilderness Warrior for a number of camp tasks, so everything from simple basic tasks like cutting cordage all the way through some light limbing tasks. Now overall, the Wilderness Warrior is a great knife, very well balanced and feels excellent in my hands, just doing a nice job clearing this log and getting it prepared for me. The Wilderness Warrior falling between the 6-inch and 7-inch blade class size range, it is going to be a nice sized camp knife and overall very well balanced. And using it here for a little bit of chopping, here I do need to make myself some tripod legs. So I'm using the Wilderness Warrior to chop down through the base of the legs so I can point them out just a little bit. Now going at it with my gloves on here, I did find that after a little while I kind of fatigued. I find that with the Wilderness Warrior I do get overall a better grip with my bare hands. Now that's probably a function of the fact that these particular gloves are quite thick and the handle is, and I'm not going to say completely rounded out, that's not the case, but it does have a very pronounced palm swell. So with that said, I was not able to grip the knife quite as firm as I'd like, and I found that after a little bit of work I did start to fatigue. Overall, I found the knife was a little bit light for the chopping tasks, and I had to make a bit of an adjustment.
So a little light for this. I think I'm going to go to the axe.
But getting on it here, you'll see using the Wilderness Warrior for some slicing and carving tasks. Generally doing a pretty nice job. Now, like most Work Tuff Gear knives, you do need to spend a little bit of time to find the edge geometry. It is a convex edge and not a V-grind. So that might be something that if you're not used to a convex edge, you do need to take a little bit of time and just find the edge. Not a big deal, it's just a matter of practice. And here you'll see, after a little bit of use, I'm getting used to the edge geometry of the Wilderness Warrior and taking some nice healthy slices. But again, struggling just a little bit with the gloves on, I did prefer to go to the bare-handed grip. And at that point, I really gained a lot more control over the knife, finding the edge a lot better, having a good positive grip, and really at this point doing much more efficient work. Now again, with the bare hands, I found that I was able to really find that edge, get some good controlled slicing, and overall, the Wilderness Warrior definitely doing a nice job with the slicing and carving tasks.
But here, continuing to refine my baton, just going to do some careful slicing here. Now, the thing about this knife is the handle is what I would say just a little bit oversized, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I have heard a few people kind of saying that they don't like the overall size. I've heard other people saying it's perfect. In my opinion, it is a tiny bit oversized, but that's not, again, a bad thing. I do think it indexes very well. It's nicely contoured and it feels wonderful in my hands, fills it out very well. Now, I do struggle a little bit with my gloves, ironically, but without the gloves, I get a better feel for it, and it does do a nice job. Tuff Gear always doing a nice job with their edge. Here it is, a convex edge on a very high saber grind. It almost is like a full flat grind, and then it goes into that fuller, which I guess in theory makes it somewhat of a saber, but I would say this is closer to a full flat grind with a secondary convex bevel than it is a saber. So this should do okay at batoning tasks, but it wouldn't do quite as good as a saber. But what I can tell you is that definitely makes it nice and slicey. Keeping in mind this is oak, so it's going to be a hard wood, so nothing's going to do an incredibly good job like ripping through this, but you'll see. I'm finding my edge, getting a little bite here and just carving nicely and throwing my curls right at the lens. Boom! When I get control of my edge and I find it and I learn how to control it, I can actually almost pinpoint where my shavings go. And with the right curls, I can almost launch them right at the lens. Boom! Got it. So this here is pretty nice. I'd say at this point I'm about ready to finish this up and get my little stick fire going. So let's see how we do with the spine of the Wilderness Warrior here. I have some of this Fiber Light tinder, which is a pretty good tinder source. It's natural, it lights real easy, and today I'm not looking to mess around. I got a lot to do, so although I like going natural, oop, sliding around on me a bit, but definitely worked. So transferring my flame here. Oop. Actually, that's a good little idea right there. Let's just get a little of that down into the top of the tin here. Put that out. And this will be enough to get my fire started. Nice fat wood in there. That's what I need to get my fire started. So the one problem you do come across sometimes with kydex is when the knife is just a little bit frozen. Now, I am able to get this out of here. However, I can tell you it was just a little bit frozen in the sheath. Not a big deal, but again, this awesome Wilderness Warrior, just perfect for these little camp tasks. Now I'm sitting here lashing everything together, and I just need to simply cut some cord. And the nice thing is, with that drop point, it is easy to get in where you need to. Just enough belly there to get under and slice, and it's good and comfortable. It's not a heavy knife. This is actually pretty light, all things considered, so it's nice for that sort of camp feel. It's not gonna weigh you down. It just kind of sits on my belt. In fact, in a way, I almost kind of forget it's there. So nicely done with the sheath, a nice ride, good and comfortable, and good for these little tasks. So Wilderness Warrior, definitely sweet. So at this point, some pretty good work using the Wilderness Warrior and the Siddha Khukuri. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go back to the studio. I'm going to clean these up. We're going to look at them in a little more detail, go through all the rest of the details in terms of the size and the weight and some more things that you may be interested on these blades. Then we'll come up with some final thoughts and conclusions, and we'll wrap it up. So see you back at the studio. And so now back in the studio, I thought we'd take a look at these blades in a little more detail, and I did want to roll in some other knives that you may be a little more familiar with, just to give you a size comparison against the Wilderness Warrior. So here I have cleaned up the Wilderness Warrior, and at this point looking mighty nice. You'll notice that the finish on this still in very good condition. The edge still almost perfect. Now, feeling it here, it did dull out on me just a little bit, but keep in mind, I was working on frozen wood in almost all scenarios. So at this point, I really can't hold that against the knife nor the steel. That's just kind of part of the territory, and I can tell you with a little bit of stropping and a ceramic rod, this is going to come back immediately to razor sharp and no problem. And as you look really close, no edge damage at all. No rolling, no chipping. I mean, we're talking about dulling on a microscopic level, and that's something that is real easy to bring back without difficulty. So all in all, the Wilderness Warrior performing extremely well. And again, I did want to give you a size comparison against knives that you may be familiar with. So the first thing that you might say is, well, that Wilderness Warrior is in the same size class as an SE6. Yes, it is, in fact, very similar overall, but you will notice that it has a little more in blade depth, and it's just a little bit longer. So it really does sort of strike the balance between the SE6 and the Ontario Rat 7. I'd say it's right in between the two. Now, overall, you'll notice that the handle also is a little bit larger in overall depth, but most significantly in the width. And that's what I'm saying is, when you look at the Wilderness Warrior, it is just a little bit oversized. But I don't mind that at all. And in fact, when you look at how the SE6 indexes, it is a very natural grip. And as I grab the Wilderness Warrior, very natural here as well. But it does fill out quite a bit through that palm area, which isn't a problem for me. My hands are towards, I would say, a large size,
but if you have smaller hands, that may be a little bit of an issue for you. Overall, I do like the handle. I think it does index quite well, and if you look at where your thumb index is there for a full grip, that feels great. And then getting forward on the choil, you'll notice that my thumb is indexing just beyond the jimping there in a natural sort of grip. That to me is very comfortable. So I do find that, ironically, I really don't use the jimping on this knife too much. I kind of miss it in both grips with my particular hand size. If you rock your thumb back, you do get on the jimping there, but I'll tell you, it does create a little bit of a stress point up in this portion of your hand. So for me, more natural, just reaching forward there, that's a good natural grip. So overall, with the Wilderness Warrior, very, very nicely done. And again, just throwing this up against a couple other knives that you may be familiar with. Here we have the Benchmade Arvensis, and here the Hogue EX-F01. This particular model being the 7-inch. So the Wilderness Warrior, again, really falling right between the 6-inch blade size class and that 7-inch blade size class. But no matter what, a knife in this size range is going to be a wonderful, wonderful camp knife. So Work Tuff Gear and the Wilderness Warrior, nicely done, and a great design from Shannon Doe Hamilton. And Work Tuff Gear always doing a great job with their Kydex. Very nicely done. Here you'll see this is a taco style sheath. You'll see the Work Tuff Gear logo etched on the side. Very nicely done. And I do like the carry capability here. I like the fact that this is on a nylon webbing. It moves very freely and it sits wonderfully on my hip. Now I did carry this on my strong side, so having this on my right side as a right-handed carry, working very well, but if you wanted to, you could certainly switch this around so it does make it ambidextrous. And the retention on this particular sheath is amongst the best of all Work Tuff Gear knives. No rattle at all, absolutely perfect. And the retention there, just an awesome positive click. So very nicely done with the sheath. And so now taking a look in detail at the Siddha Khukuri, and even after all of that work, you'll see the finish did hold up very, very well. And for this being my first kukri, I do have to say, I greatly enjoyed it. It does make me want to get other kukri designs in my hands and try them out. Now, overall, it was a little bit of a learning curve for me. You'll see over time I did gain control, and it just took a little bit to figure out how to use the different parts of the blade effectively. But there's no doubt in my mind that if you were capable of mastering this, it would become a very, very productive tool. And so, even though I had some limited use there, the use that I did give it was a good test for the overall quality and heat treat on the edge of the steel. Of course, working in freezing conditions is always going to be a tough test for a knife, but looking through the edge on the Siddha Khukuri here, everything nice and sharp. The belly, still very, very sharp, and getting up into the recurve, also nice and sharp. Now, one thing that caught me a little bit by surprise is the grind down here in the plunge line. This does get quite thick. I think this is probably a challenge in manufacturing to thin that out, and where you look at it up against the full thickness of the ricasso there, I can see that they would have a tough time getting in with their tooling. But other than that, great design elements. I do love the oversized handle. I did not find that at any point in time I needed to regrip, and it also, with that amount of mass, gives this a great even balance. So not only does this help with the grip, but it also helps balance out the knife. So sort of handle weighting it just a little bit and giving it a nice balanced feel. And so as I mentioned, I don't have any other kukris to go by to give you a comparison, but some other blades that you may be familiar if you're kind of wondering about the overall size of the Siddha Khukuri. Here you'll see against the Work Tuff Gear Nomad. Here you have the Essie Hungalis, and here you have the Tops Knives Armageddon. Now, some of these with obviously a little bit of a belly, it does give you that sort of like kukri-esque style and capabilities, and really especially here with the Armageddon, you'll see you do get a little bit of that recurve design, but nowhere as dramatic as on the Siddha Khukuri. I mean, this is definitely a very aggressive recurve design with a massive belly, I will be very curious to continue to use this for different types of camp tasks moving into the future. So far, so good. And the sheath design, very suitable for this kukri. Now I do need to say, if you are planning on carrying this for a long distance, or you're going to be doing a lot of scrambling, my suggestion is to add a loop around the top to help secure the knife with additional retention. I found that I did not have any trouble, and when you look at how you insert this, it does work very well. However, I think it would be fairly easy to accidentally bump this out of place, and it just has me a little bit nervous. Overall, I do think this sheath design is great, but again, just having that retention strap over the top adds a level of security. So well done, nicely crafted. I believe this, in my opinion, is the appropriate sheath design for this. I just think adding a little bit of security would go a long way. So all right guys, there you have it. A look at this Wilderness Warrior from Work Tuff Gear. Again, just beautifully manufactured by Work Tuff Gear and a great design by Shannon Doe Hamilton. Teamed up for this project and very well executed. And the Siddha Khukuri from Timothy McLaughlin of Dragonfly Kukri and Knives. Again, beautifully executed between the designer and Work Tuff Gear. And that's one thing that Work Tuff Gear has been doing just wonderfully. Taking people's brainchilds, their creations, and their vision, and turning them into real-life blades that not only look amazing, but they function extremely well. Work Tuff Gear has been absolutely nailing it lately, and the Siddha Khukuri and Wilderness Warrior are just a couple of great examples. So all right guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.